Imagine it's 3 a.m., you're asleep, everything is peaceful, and suddenly something explodes in your leg. Your calf turns into a rock. The pain comes out of nowhere. It's incredibly intense, and the worst part is, you didn't ask for it. Your leg simply decided to do whatever it wanted. It lasts a minute, maybe two, and then disappears as if nothing happened. But could you ever get a cramp that never stops? I'm talking about a cramp that simply doesn't let go. Under what conditions could that happen? How likely is it? And what would happen to your body if it happened today? Let's look at the science behind muscle cramp. To understand why a cramp might never stop, we first need to understand why it normally does. Under normal conditions, your brain sends an electrical signal, the muscle contracts, the signal ends, and the muscle relaxes, literally like a switch turning on and off. If you try it right now, you can clench your hand and watch the muscles in your forearm contract, then relax them whenever you want. A cramp happens when that switch gets stuck in the on position. Motor neurons begin firing uncontrollably, and the muscle keeps receiving the command to contract over and over again without anyone canceling it. But your body has its own emergency braking system to stop this. Inside your tendons or specialized receptors called Golgi tendon organs. Their job is to monitor muscle tension, and when they detect too much force, they send a signal that forces the muscle to relax. That's the emergency brake. But under what conditions can that brake fail? This is where things get interesting. For a cramp to become prolonged, one or more of these conditions usually need to happen at the same time. First, extreme muscle fatigue and dehydration. When the system is exhausted, its inhibitory mechanisms, including the emergency brake we just discussed, become much less effective. Second, a severe electrolyte imbalance. Sodium, potassium, calcium, and magnesium regulate the electrical activity of your muscle cells. And when those levels become unbalanced, muscles lose the ability to control their own electrical signals properly. Finally, a nervous system that's out of control. Cramps occur in muscles, but some neurological conditions cause continuous contraction signals to come from the brain itself. In those cases, the problem isn't in the muscle, it's in the nervous system. Seizures are the most extreme example, though there are less dramatic neurological conditions as well. So if all three of these conditions happen together, could you experience a cramp that just wouldn't stop? Most likely, yes. It could last far longer than it should. And there are real-world examples. There's a condition called tetany, where muscles remain contracted continuously for minutes or even longer. It usually happens because of low calcium levels, and patients describe contractions they can't control. Swimmers crossing the English Channel report that prolonged cramps are one of the leading reasons they have to quit. Now, what would happen to your body if the cramp truly never stopped? As the muscle stays contracted, it begins squeezing its own blood vessels, essentially strangling itself. Without blood and oxygen, muscle cells start accumulating lactic acid, and the pain continues to intensify. After about 20 to 30 minutes of continuous intense contraction, muscle cells begin to suffer damage and eventually break apart. When that happens, they release myoglobin into the bloodstream. In large amounts, myoglobin is toxic to the kidneys. The kidneys try to filter it out, but they can become overwhelmed, which can lead to acute kidney failure. This condition is called rhabdomyolysis, and it's a real medical emergency that can be fatal if left untreated. What's even crazier is that muscle destruction actually worsens the very conditions that cause the cramp in the first place. Damaged muscle cells release potassium into the bloodstream, and excess potassium further disrupts the electrical signaling of muscles, leading to more contractions, more damage, and even more potassium. The cramp essentially feeds on its own destruction. It's a vicious cycle. So under normal circumstances, how can you prevent a cramp? First, get enough magnesium. It's one of the most important electrolytes for helping muscles relax, and most people don't consume enough of it. You can easily get it from foods like nuts, seeds, spinach, and bananas. Second, don't just drink water. When you sweat, you lose not only water, but also electrolytes. Replacing only the water without restoring sodium and potassium can actually make the imbalance worse. Electrolyte drinks, or simply not avoiding salt after intense exercise, can help. Third, stretch before going to bed. It may sound boring, but studies show that stretching your calves for just 30 seconds before sleep significantly reduces nighttime cramps. Fourth, if you already have a cramp, pull your toes toward your shin. This activates the Golgi tendon organs, which send the signal for the muscle to relax, and it often works within seconds. What doesn't work, even though many people do it, is aggressively massaging the muscle while it's still cramped. Massage is helpful afterward, not during the cramp. And fifth, if cramps happen more than 2 or 3 times a week, see a doctor. At that point, it's probably not just bad luck or poor posture. There may be an underlying condition worth investigating. It may be the most boring advice in the world, but it works. So back to the original question. Can you actually have a cramp that never stops? Technically, yes. If you have severe untreated hypocalcemia, a nervous system that's completely out of control, hours of extreme dehydration and exhaustion, and for some reason no one nearby to help and no access to medical care, something very close to that could happen. But the good news is that it's extremely unlikely you'll ever experience it. And I can say this with confidence, that awful 3 a.m. leg cramp is annoying. Yes, it's miserable, but your body usually knows how to stop it. Bye-bye.